The Green Bay Packers want to put playoff performances behind them while the 49ers are fighting to get back in the playoff mix. It's a Locked On Packers, Locked On 49ers crossover Thursday, and it starts right now.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome inside another crossover Thursday presented by our friends at PrizePicks. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get a free $50 bonus when you play that first $5 lineup. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker from Locked On 49ers joining me on the show today. And guys, this is not a playoff game, but feels like a playoff game because of what the implications are, because of the history between these two teams, the game that they played last January. And we'll get to that part of it. But this 49ers team to date, the underlying metrics are good. Brian, you and I were talking before we jumped on that this is a team that kind of underperforms some of those underlying metrics. You had Aaron Schatz on your show talking about that on Peacock and Williamson. Why doesn't this team look like the 49ers we're used to seeing?
Well, they're still wearing scarlet and gold, but they're underperforming. And Aaron Schatz laid it out, and you got to listen to, Tuesday's episode of Peacock and Williamson. Aaron Schatz, the godfather of modern NFL statistics, really, but the inventor of the DVOA stat. And he broke down a lot about what the league looks like right now, according to DVOA and through that lens. But Kyle Shanahan's 49ers this year, as much as any year, but really it's a consistent thing for Kyle Shanahan to sort of underperform what those metrics look like and what the 49ers should be and how well they're playing in advanced statistics. And it feels that way watching the 49ers. They're a couple plays away from having a couple more wins, 3 more wins potentially on the season, but they're losing games when they're ahead in the fourth quarter, but they're able to get leads and they're able to, score points, and their points per play look good. And they're 6th in the NFL in DVOA, but they're a 500 football team. And you really just kind of have to point to Kyle Shanahan. And I think there is a little bit of a stumble happening with some of the Shanahan offenses around the league. And Peter, I think the head coach of the Green Bay Packers is Shanahan related, but he's not sub Shanahan necessarily, like maybe Bobby Slowick or Mike McDaniel or Robert Saleh or, the other coaches that have been directly under Kyle Shanahan as a 49ers coach recently. And I think the league is finding ways to figure out how to, because so many people run a variation of that offense. I think defenses and smart coordinators, they get paid on the other side too, are doing a pretty good job of figuring out how to play against those offenses, because they have to, because a third of the league is running a Shanahan-esque style offense. And Kyle Shanahan's definitely running a Shanahan offense, and he was the original. So they got the most.
But it is not. It seems like a different version of the Shanahan offense, isn't it? Like, it's not. This is not the version that we saw last year, the year before, the Jimmy Garoppolo version, where it's like, let's get under center, let's run a bunch of play action, and they're asking Brock Purdy to go out there and create in ways that they haven't before. Croc, what are you seeing from this offense right now? Because I see a quarterback in Brock Purdy who is creating more outside of structure. He is extending plays, using his legs. He's more dangerous than ever out there, but it seems like he's also more dangerous to his own team, making mistakes in ways and putting the ball in harm's way in ways that we have not seen so far. What do you see there?
Well, I was going to say, you had mentioned how the 49ers are asking Brock Purdy to do more outside the structure of the offense, and I don't think they are. I think if it were up to Kyle Shanahan, Purdy would drop back 3 steps, get the ball out, catch and run opportunity for a guy, hit your check down. You got Christian McCaffrey back. Let's get the ball in his hands right now. Even if it's it could be like right in front of the line of scrimmage, a 4-yard pass where it doesn't travel very far, but then Christian McCaffrey picks up another 3. Now you have a very short, second and manageable situation. I think the 49ers have been bad, and not just at that, but really just in situational football. When you look around the league, right, you were talking about offense and when the 49ers have been good and bad and whatnot, but you look around the NFL, and there's different ways to win, for sure. You look at the Detroit Lions. I know you guys are very familiar with Detroit. You again,
I'd like to be less familiar with Detroit. Croc. I
hosting the Packers. So you see Detroit, and right now offense on fire. They're scoring 50, they're scoring 40, they're scoring 30 points, right? Like they're putting up a bunch of points. On the other end of it, you see the Kansas City Chiefs, who now have one loss on their record, but they have just figured out how to win games. But ultimately, they've been good in games when they need it most, when it matters most, whether it's the offense picking up a first down, maybe the defense just getting a stop. But whatever it takes to kind of squeak out a win, Kansas City has been really good with that. The 49ers in situational football, and specifically the fourth quarter, have been terrible. I feel like that's when they played their worst football throughout games. They've done really good things to gain these leads, double-digit leads, and a lot of them, they give up these double-digit leads because they have drops late, they have penalties late, they have poor special teams late. I feel like every facet of the football team, whether it's the offense, defense, or special teams, has a hand in some of the losses that the 49ers have had. So I like how when we were off air, you said they look like the 49ers, but not really. And I'm like, that's a perfect example of it. And I think the biggest thing that they're not doing well is situational football.
Yeah, and that's really good teams. We expect them to play good all the time, right? Like, so you don't have to play close games. That's the thing that I think we sometimes underrate. It's like, no, good teams, yes, you expect them to win close games, but you expect them to not play close games. And I think that's, if you're a Packers fan, I've been hearing a lot this week, guys, the Packers don't pass the eye test because they're just squeaking out these games. And I'm like, can you please go watch the 49ers talking about a team that doesn't pass the eye test in the fourth quarter last week? Like, they didn't look like they wanted to be out there in the fourth quarter against Geno Smith. They blew that game to the Rams in gobsmacking fashion. The Cardinals, I mean, these were games that they had control of and just let go. And it was so startling to me because I'm like, this is Kyle Shanahan usually does the thing that the Lions are doing to teams. And it's when you're up 10, you're up 20 because he's just going to keep coming at you. And when they can be in whatever we want to be in situations, they're so deadly. We haven't really seen that. And it's sometimes like, Croc, you played the game at the professional level. Are there times where as a team, you just feel like we can't make those plays? We know we're a good team, but it just seems like we're in this space where it's like, we can't seem to quite get there.
You know, I think there is that thing kind of getting in your way, whether it was me playing football or even coaching high school football. Hey, we had a playoff game the other week, and we were up 34-15 at halftime, and we lost the game. Like, it hurt. But we could feel it snowballing. We could see things not going our way. We turned the ball over several times in the second half. 3 fumbles, another interception in the red zone. Those are the recipes to lose, and those are exactly the things that we're seeing from the 49ers. I can't escape mistakes, whether it's my high school kids or the 49ers.
Eric Crocker can't win the big game, is what they're saying.
Oh, dang. That's tough. So this defense, I was looking at some of the numbers earlier today, 26th in red zone EPA. That's exactly your point, Croc, right? Like this defense, they can't get the stops that they need to get when they need to get them. And is that the atrophy of the coaches that are no longer in the building? By the way, Robert Saleh on the Packers sideline right now, like is that a personnel deficiency? Like what has happened to get to this place where when they need a key stop, whether it's in game or at the end of games, they're just not getting it right now?
You know, in those situations, I always lean on your big dogs, right? 49ers they have Nick Bosa, they got Fred Warner. Fred Warner started the season hot. It was clear, like, oh, defensive player of the year, give him the award now. He's playing lights out. He's doing everything. Nick Bosa, he's the guy. And Nick Bosa, he picked it up last week, had a good game. But Fred Warner, I don't know if anybody has said this out loud, but over like the last 6 games, he's been terrible. And definitely not the version of Fred Warner that we've been accustomed to seeing with the 49ers, or even the guy that we saw for the first, 4 to 5 weeks of the season. So when we're talking about red zone and being able to take points off the board, he did that twice against the Minnesota Vikings early in the season, where he punched a fumble out, 49ers recovered it, got an interception in the red zone. Their big play guys aren't making the plays when they need them to be made. And, other guys, they're going to do their thing. They're going to, make a play here and there. But you need the big plays to come up with, whether it's a blocked field goal to win the game right at the end of it. You need guys to step up in those situations. And right now, it's almost like the 49ers, they'll do it here and there. Then you kind of need the offense to take over. Then the offense doesn't do their thing. You let a team linger around. And next thing you know, you have Geno Smith scampering into the end zone for a game-winning touchdown run.
I do want to add to that really quick is and Croc's correct about everything there. And I think first of all, Fred Warner had an ankle injury, and his play dipped right at that moment. So I think he's probably still working through that, and that hurt him a little bit. But I think the 49ers defensive line isn't quite. They've built the thing out of the defensive line. And, of course, it's all about the Kyle Shanahan offense. But from day one,
tried that. It has gone very badly.
Yeah. They built it out of the defensive line. And the defensive line has been scary. DeForest Buckner's been, is now gone. And Eric Armstead is now gone. And, D Ford didn't last very long. That 2019 line was just ridiculous. And they rode that to a Super Bowl. And as good as Bosa still is, maybe the sack numbers aren't quite there for him this year, but he's still, one of the top couple of defensive ends in the NFL, top 5 at least. He might have been number 1 for a while, defensive ends according to PFF, and he's a really good player. They're just not that scary unit up front that they have been in the past, and they're fine up front with Bosa in there. But now Bosa's banged up, and they're just not taking over games and dominating people. They're not the boogeyman like they once were, and I think that's a big factor. And they've, I think, kind of faded down the stretch in games and had a tough time closing out in the fourth quarter just from a lungs and legs capacity.
I think from the outside,
let me just tell you,
they still have that. Oh, my bad. Outside talking, they still have that.
Exactly the point that I'm making, Croc. The boogeyman, they are the Green Bay Packers boogeyman still. We're going to talk about that next on a Locked On Packers, Locked On 49ers crossover Thursday. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Bilt Rewards. We've all been there, feeling like burning cash with those rent checks. It's frustrating, right? But here's the deal. Bilt Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with Bilt. Bilt is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points for your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Bilt points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with more than 500 airlines and over 700,000 hotels and properties. You can use your points to book fitness classes, redeem them toward future rent payments. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Bilt Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Bilt points have consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guys and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you join Bilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinBilt.com/LockedOnNFL, BILT. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. Join Bilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want the money just for extra money? Why wouldn't you want extra money just for winning? Hello, that's what FanDuel wants to give you, not a thing that you usually get, by the way, from a sportsbook. You usually have to win your bets to get all that money. Packers right now, 1.5-point favorites, according to our friends at FanDuel. That means it's a toss-up. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a tight one. It is going to be a nerve-wracking game for both of these fan bases. The season on the line in San Francisco, and about a lot of playoff scars on the line for the Green Bay Packers. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, coming back, Locked On Packers, Locked On 49ers, a crossover Thursday. And Croc, we had to cut you off, had to get to break. Sorry about that, but you were making a point that I wanted to get to, that this 49ers team, they still have that perception, certainly from fan bases. I don't know about how they feel in the locker room. This team is laying in wait, that they are a coiled snake, just ready to strike at any moment. And I'm sure there's a big group of 49er fans who are going, they're going to figure this out. Like at some point, they're going to look like that team. And that's why, to me, this is so important for Green Bay to treat this like a playoff game, to say we can beat the 49ers in the playoffs now, right now, today. Sunday, because you go 5-6 you can't make the wild card at 5-6. It has to be in the division, and that gets tough. If the Cardinals win, now you're 2+ games back of that team. That makes it really tough here. Like, are you guys expecting the 49ers to show some sort of renewed fight given that their season is on the line? Or were you expecting that last week in a divisional game and the week before that and the week before that?
I think we have been expecting that fight, but you talked about Green Bay and, proving that they could beat the 49ers and, they could beat them now, they could beat them in the postseason. I think for Green Bay, this one will be better than a postseason win, because if you beat the 49ers right now, they fall to 5-6 and they have to play Buffalo next week on the road. That's not a great recipe for success for the San Francisco 49ers. So this essentially is a playoff game for the Niners. It is a must win. I don't know how Peacock is looking at it, but do you see it the same way?
Oh, absolutely. The playoffs start in November for the 49ers. This is a playoff game. I think that's the way they have to treat this against an NFC opponent. I saw the PFF had, if the Niners win, they still have a 55% chance of making the playoffs. If they lose, it drops to under 15% chance to make the playoffs. And you could still lose this game and mathematically make the playoffs, but you're just creating, and the 49ers have already created a level of difficulty that's unnecessary for this team right now. And so this absolutely has a playoff atmosphere. And the last time the Niners' backs were against the wall, was like, the Niners have to win this game. It was a tough game, short week, Thursday nighter on the road to the Seahawks, and they whipped up on the Seahawks. And I'd expected the Niners to kind of be that team. It's like, all right, November, post-bye, Shanahan teams have been really good. They're going to flip the switch. And after last week's game, week 11 against the Seahawks the second time, I thought, man, you know what? I don't know if this team has it in them. Maybe this is not the year that they're going to flip the switch, and which means they are going to flip the switch now against the Packers because it's the Packers, and because
that's a Packer fans thing. 100%. That's what Packer fans are thinking right now. Like, they're going to show up again, and you know what? You know what will happen? You know what will be funny is the 49ers. If the 49ers beat Green Bay this weekend, and then still miss the playoffs. Because it'll be like, well, we still own you guys. Like, that'll be the thing that 49ers fans will get to say all offseason, which will be true. Like, there will be no defense for that. That's the problem if you're a Packers fan. So, like, the optimal thing to happen for Green Bay is to win this game on Sunday and for the 49ers not to make the playoffs. What will be annoying, believe me, is if we have to do this again. If we're sitting here in January, regardless of what happens this weekend, if we're sitting here in January going, well, the Packers travel to Santa Clara on wild card weekend, like that is going to be maddening for Packers fans. I'm telling you right now. So there are going to be some tight sphincters at Lambeau Field if the 49ers come out and go up 7-0, because it's going to feel like more of the same. And I think if you're the 49ers, that's why starting fast is going to be really important, because you are going to have a very emotional Green Bay team. And a crowd late afternoon. It's going to be chilly, low 40s in this game. So they're going to be bundled up. Those gloves on the hands, not quite as loud cheering. It is going to be a nervous game, I think, for a lot of Packer fans. So if the 49ers can start fast, that ends up really. Is it novel analysis to say get a lead early, right? Like, duh, play well, and they'll win. Like, but I think starting
that didn't help the Packers last time.
Well, but I'm saying for the 49ers, if you can come in and take a little bit of a lead early, it helps with the fan base. Yeah, you're right. The last two times that these two teams have played, the Packers have controlled 90% of the game and the 49ers won. So it kind of doesn't feel like it matters. It feels like they're inevitable. It feels like that the 49ers are just going to do this, which is why psychologically, I think there's so much on the line in a game like this.
And look, Peter, if the 49ers and Packers play again in January, I like the 49ers even better in that game, because that means they did flip the switch.
God, I hate this so much.
But this
you're right. Like, no, you're absolutely right. And you know what? It will be because they went into Lambeau and beat the Packers in this game. Like, it will be the thing that flips the switch. And then all of a sudden in January, we're talking about nobody wants to see this team. And look, they're what do you say? They were 5th in DVOA and all that stuff. Like, it's just, it would feel very much in line with the way that this has gone since 2012. I mean, I was thinking back on it. 2012 is how, and really, if we really want to play this game, you guys are both old enough to remember this rivalry changed in 1998 or 1999, depending on how you look at the seasons, when Terrell Owens made that catch to knock the Packers out, break their hearts. I think the Packers have beat the 49ers in the playoffs one time since then. Does that sound right? Like that's in almost 20 years.
I think for some younger listeners, they might not remember when the Packers really had the 49ers number and how frustrating that was in the mid 90s, watching the Brett Favre Packers beat the Niners every time. And the Super Bowl always went through.
By the way, Jerry Rice did fumble on that drive, but that's neither here nor there.
Glad there wasn't any replay.
Well, and it brought replay back. That's the crazy part, is that the Packers lost so that everyone else had to deal with these inane replays that we have now. One of the things that I was looking at, guys, was the Packers in the playoffs. I went back and watched that game, and there was a lot of heavy personnel. The Packers liked having all of the big bodies on the field against the 49ers, which is interesting because that's usually how the 49ers want to play, right? They want to have Kittle and Juszczyk on the field, or they want to have 2 running backs on the field, or whatever it is. And this team right now is worse out of their base personnel than when they play in nickel. Is that a Devondre Campbell problem? Is that what is the cause for that? And how, like, if the Packers are going to do that, what would be the most concerning part of it?
Yeah, Devondre Campbell doesn't help. I think the 49ers in opportune moments haven't done a really good job of getting after the quarterback, creating pressure, creating those turnovers. And I think some blame. They're still trying to figure out defensive coordinator since DeMeco Ryans left, and Nick Sorensen. A lot of people, want him fired. I don't know if that's necessarily, I think it's a little low hanging, but I don't know if he's done such an amazing job, or I'm like, no, he's been awesome, and he's the long-term defensive coordinator for the 49ers either. And you go back to last week, and there's a call, and it's like, well, it was either Devondre Campbell screwed up or it was a bad play call, because it was one of those two things. So I think you probably start with those two guys, and then you start making the list after that.
Is part of the reason their nickel defense is so good is that someone like Diamador Lenore is getting to play where he belongs, and because he's such an impactful player when he's out there. He's
really good in the nickel, and the 49ers have had the rookie Renardo Green able to step in, and hopefully it looks like Charvarius Ward is going to be back for the 49ers.
I was ask about that.
When you have Ward on one side and you have a really good player, young player in Renardo Green on the other side, and then you have someone like Diamador Lenore that can look. I think the nickel is an underrated position in the NFL. I don't think nickel guys are getting paid enough. I loved seeing him get paid. I think guys like George Kittle are way underpaid. Like he's making half as much as some of the wide receivers around the league.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
and Kittle said he's going to play yesterday. Said I'm not missing this opportunity. It seems like the injury wise, there's like bigger concern about Brock Purdy than George Kittle, which kind of seems crazy to me.
Brock Purdy wasn't throwing passes at practice on Wednesday, and he'll have an opportunity to be ready and get, so he's limited right now, and he's taking mental reps at practice like he's going to play. So I'm sure he'll end up playing, and they'll do whatever they need to medically to get him out there on the field, and we'll have to monitor those practices on Thursday and Friday to see if he's able to play. But I'm sure he'll start throwing, but at least by Friday, and he'll be out there for the 49ers. And Nick Bosa is not really in a great spot with his hip either, and is most likely going to miss this game and potentially even more games than that right now, and he's not practicing at all yet this week. So that's not great when the two probably most important players, your best player in Nick Bosa and then your quarterback, are potentially banged up enough to not play in a game. On top of that, in a must-win game, playoffs in November, it's not a great combination.
I want to ask about Christian McCaffrey. I want to talk about this Packers defense. We're going to do that in just a second here on a Locked On Packers, Locked On 49ers crossover Thursday. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. This month is all about gratitude, with Thanksgiving coming up, of course. And there are a lot of people in all of our lives that we need to thank, but maybe someone we don't thank enough. And that's ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything in this crazy world. And it's not always easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. And therapy can help you get there. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn to get 10% off that first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Shout out to my small children for making appearances in both ad reads this week. Future podcasters, I suppose. So Christian McCaffrey was not around for half the season. Had to go to Europe to see some specialists, maybe some doctors that he wouldn't be allowed to see in the United States. We don't know what's going on there. But he came back, and the offense did not look like what we expected or what we knew it would look like last year. How healthy does he look to you, and how much better do you think he can get? Or is this just sort of the version of CMC that we're going to see for like the next month as he works back into real game shape?
I don't know. What do you think, Croc? I don't think he looks quite 100%. I think he's lacking a little bit of that explosive ability.
Juice, yeah.
The results haven't been great either. And to be honest with you, the results have been worse than they were running the football with Jordan Mason most of the year. Jordan Mason has barely been able to touch the ball since Christian McCaffrey's been back, which is definitely a Kyle Shanahan thing. And, Bobby Turner, running backs coach thing. And I think Bobby Turner's the one really in charge of who goes in and out of the game during the game. But, they might need to make a better plan pregame to have Christian McCaffrey spelled. He's made some amazing catches, and, clearly he's better in the passing game, but he's not quite right. And I think the biggest thing is, even a 90% Christian McCaffrey, you're going to put him out there as much as you can, right? But
it's better than most running backs, for sure.
Right. And the big thing is that 49ers fans, and I think the idea was, Christian McCaffrey's going to come back, and whatever's been kind of weird, he'll Band-Aid all of it and fix it all. And that hasn't happened. And I think that's clear.
Yeah, it hasn't been great. Last game he was, very productive, and he's been productive for the most part, especially through the air. I think that's where they've kind of gotten more of their bang for their buck. The rushing yards, the yards per carry, not super high like you're used to seeing from Christian McCaffrey, still kind of hovering around 4 yards per carry in his last game. But Kyle Shanahan has proven time and time again, if he has Christian McCaffrey healthy, he's going to be the factor back and get the bulk of the carries. So they have two other running backs. Early in the season, a lot of people got a chance to meet Jordan Mason, and we saw how well he ran. And he's earning nicknames, and people are calling him Baby Marshawn Lynch. And he was leading the league in rushing at one point through the first quarter of the season, and then he got banged up. So then the 49ers went with Isaac Guerrero, a rookie, and he's ripping off big runs. Peacock and I have talked about it, and we would like to see Kyle Shanahan figure out a way to utilize all three guys to their skill sets. And Guerrero, he's more of a one-cut explosive back. Jordan Mason, he's more of your power back. And Christian McCaffrey obviously gives you a little bit of everything, but gives you even more in the passing game. Mm-hmm. Is there a way that you can kind of use these three guys to create the ultimate run game? And you'd assume so, but Kyle Shanahan, he's going to go with what he knows, and that's to play one running back and run him as much as possible until that guy gets hurt.
I think the key for Green Bay in this game is they have been a pretty good run defense most of the year, or at least an average. Pretty good by Green Bay standards means like average. And that's been what they are this year. But as a too high defense, they are a bad run defense. And the thing that is different about this 49ers team to me right now is that without Brandon Ayuk, they just do not threaten you vertically the same way that they used to. And I think you're going to see the Packers play more single high. That will help them stop the run. You're essentially daring Brock Purdy. We dare you to beat us deep with Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel. And I think George Kittle could be the guy that they try and do that with. Some of those big play action shots. We think of that 2019 game, either one where the 49ers beat the brakes off the Packers. That's Shanahan staple where Kittle runs the cover 3 beater, where he runs the big post corner. And it's just like wide ass open every time. Certainly against Green Bay, against Kevin King is, I believe, who was in coverage on the play that I'm thinking of. And so like, I think that's going to be the plan. It's interesting to me that this is a 49ers team that is facing a 49ers-ish defense. Jeff Hafley was the 49ers defensive backs coached with Kyle Shanahan. In fact, it was Kyle Shanahan who brought Haf to Cleveland in the first place, and then brought him to the 49ers because he thought enough about him there. Brian, you mentioned all these teams running the Shanahan offense and the answers that they have. Well, you're talking about Robert Saleh and Jeff Hafley were there for the creation of the Shanahan offense. And so I wonder how that impacts this game. If the Packers cannot allow big plays, I think they will win, because this team has had some issues generating those explosives. And we know the value of those explosive plays in scoring touchdowns. It's huge.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there with the downfield stuff, and it did feel like, especially watching Niners Seahawks last week, and at the end of the game, it felt like, where's this big play going to come from? You need Christian McCaffrey to break off some big plays. Debo has had a lack of those really big catch and runs. The Niners went from like best to
Well, he's
worst.
not a vertical threat. It's got to
Yeah.
be a slant that he takes for 70,
Right,
which we
exactly.
know he can do.
Exactly. And so you're like, where's that big play going to come from? And it kind of doesn't happen. And then you go watch Sunday Night Football right after that. And you've got Burrow throwing bombs, and you got Justin Herbert laser shows. And you're like, yeah, that looks completely different. Okay. And the Niners definitely lack an explosive element on offense too right now. And by the way, you mentioned Saleh, Bob Saleh on the other sideline, just doing Shanahan dirty. Does that make you want to fight more? If you go to the bar and you see your ex-girlfriend across, does that make you want to fight more? Or does it make you want to pack it up and go home? I think we're going to find that out on Sunday.
Croc, what kind of, like, is there a little advantage? We heard Matt LaFleur said there was a play that they ran against the Bears that Saleh said, hey, you know that concept, that because he knows the offensive playbook too. That's the cool thing, is he's actually working with the Packers offense on, hey, these are how teams are going to attack you. And so, do you think there's a little bit of inside info that can benefit Green Bay in this game?
Definitely. Knowing tendencies is the biggest thing in football. If you line up and hey, in these situations, these are the plays that they like, right? And then as soon as they snap the ball, you'll kind of see how that's playing out, and you'll know out of those couple options, it's this one because he went this way. And now everybody's playing a step faster. The NFL, and I remember my time getting there, everybody says the NFL is faster. NFL is faster. But not because everybody's fast. The NFL is faster because everybody is a step ahead. And if you're a step behind, then you're just going to get lost in the sauce. But when you know a team inside and out, and you know how they think, how this coach, how he likes to do things, that definitely gives you an advantage. Now, you still have to stop them, right? Kyle Shanahan is going to know Jeff Hafley's defense. Hell, Kyle Shanahan has faced a lot of defenses that he's seen a lot of defenses multiple times, and still they kick his butt, right? So you can know what someone's going to do. You have to have the plan, and then it's on the players to execute. And again, that goes back to what I said in the first segment. The 49ers, when it matters most, have been bad at executing. And if they're going to turn this around and beat Green Bay in Green Bay, the 49ers have to execute better when it matters most. Not in the first half. We scored 20 points and you're up 10 points. Not then, but when Green Bay starts to make that inevitable move towards the 49ers, who's going to make that play to stop the bleeding? 49ers have missed that throughout most of the season.
You can get into that paralyzing psychological loop too, of like, well, he knows that I know that he knows. And then, but he knows that I know that he knows that he knows that I knows. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, are you going to outthink yourself, or are you just going to do the things that you are really good at? It's a fascinating decision-making process that these teams are going to have to endeavor here on Sunday. Do we want to throw out some predictions? What do we got here?
I want to hear your predictions, because my listeners at Locked On 49ers need reasons to be mad at you, Peter, and I know what team you're going to predict is going to win.
I think I've behaved on this show today, Brian. Like,
I think they're going to be mad at us because, at least I know myself, we're coming off as vulnerable to Peter Bukowski. He's a fan favorite of the 49ers. So I don't know how much they're going to like that.
Well, I'll start then, because the lack of confidence is why the 49ers are going to win this game. Getting points, 49ers against the Packers, automatic. Take the points for the 49ers to go to Lambeau and beat the Green Bay Packers, and Niners backs up against the wall. This is a playoff game. Kyle Shanahan's going to come up with something extra too. Robert Saleh, Matt LaFleur on the other side, Jeff Hafley. He's going to come up with something. What is going to be? I don't know. We're going to find out Sunday. But Niners take the points. The NFL is chaos. Just when you think you know what a team is, they flip the switch. Niners just flipping the switch later than we thought this year.
God, I just hate that seems so right. It's just so annoying that seems so right to me. So here's the thing. The Packers have beat the 49ers 4 straight times in the regular season. And 49ers fans are going to go, beat us when it matters. And I'll say, okay. It matters a little bit more now as a regular season game. And I do think it is a big deal for the Packers. They have been very good when they get to see teams a second time. I know they haven't seen the 49ers a second time, but this is a team they did just play in January. And they have been so close all year. In 3 losses, guys, the Packers have gone over 400 yards of offense in all 3, over 6.3 yards per play in all 3. It has been the red zone. To Croc's point, they have been bad in the red zone. If they score in the red zone in this game, they will win. And if they don't, if they kick field goals or they have to go for it on 4th down, they'll lose. And that's a little bit of a cop out, but that's the truth. And so I think they'll be able to move the ball on this 49ers defense. I think you're going to see them in 2 tight end personnel groupings. You're going to see them in heavy personnel, even from the gun. We saw that. Hey, split Tucker Kraft out and Ben Sims, or hey, let's play in pony personnel, 2 running backs on the field, get those linebackers involved. It's going to be Devondre Campbell. Better get ready to learn option routes because they're coming at him. And so I like the Packers in this game, but it's going to be a tight one. It's going to be annoying, and it's going to come down, I think, at the end to a field goal, much like the playoff game. And I think Brandon McManus is going to hit it and either clinch the game or win the game for the Packers. Croc, what you got?
I'm going to go with Peacock, man. And again, I feel vulnerable with the 49ers right now. It hasn't been great, but like you said early on, at some point, it's like, okay, we've been waiting. It's got to click. Why not click against the Green Bay Packers? I'm not super confident. You're going on the road. You're playing against Green Bay. And I think Green Bay is kind of looking for that game to where everything is just clicking for them. They haven't had that. We saw them have that in the second half of last season. But for the 49ers right now, can it click? And they got the guys, they got the players, got a little healthier. You get guys like, CMC back. Now you got George Kittle coming back now. Hopefully, and we'll see what happens with Drake Greenlaw. Hopefully he's on the field. But 49ers getting a little healthier. You get Travarius Ward back. I think this is the time for the 49ers to say, you know what? We got to play like who we think we are. And we're going to have to do it on the road. And what better time to do it to make a statement against Peter Bukowski's Green Bay Packers?
And I just got to say, the craziest thing maybe that, Peter, you've ever said is that this game's going to end because of clean special teams play.
Yeah, you're right. It won't. That's impossible. The Packers, remember, Keyshawn Nixon fumbled a kickoff return. He looked like he was going to have a chance to score, fumbled it. The Packers recovered it. But then Anders Carlson missed the field goal, which is the reason why at the end that was a drive to try and win to force overtime instead of win. Tough look. I hope it's not a special teams meltdown for everyone's sake, because the 49ers think it's special teams too. So it's just one of those like, hey, thanks for being just as crappy at this thing than we are. Let's hope there's no special teams mistakes for everyone's sake. We will catch you guys after the game on Sunday. Locked on Packers, Locked on 49ers. Subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, so you can stay locked on Packers and Locked on 49ers.